or Brigadier, has been a member of the study groups in China as well as the officer cadre management in his time. He has actively contributed in rendering aid to civil authorities that resulted in saving thousands of lives in the riots that followed the Babri Masjid demolition during the Godhra incident, as well as various cyclones, storms, and earthquakes all over India. Brigadier Pradeep Sharma is well networked with the security organizations in the United States of America, France, UK, and Israel. And he has been a guest speaker at various organizations in India and abroad. With this crisp introduction, I request Brigadier Pradeep Sharma to honor this evening with his speech as well. Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Over to you, sir. One more news. Speaker Pradeep Sharma family is related to Rotary. Our father and mother rendu perume Rotarians ரொம்ப வருஷம் இருந்திருக்காங்கங்கறதை I want to share. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Honorable.
Yes, sir.
There seems to be some problem in the video.
Now it's clear, sir.
It's clear? All right.
Yes,
all right.
Yes.
And good evening to all the participants. It gives me immense pleasure to share my thoughts with you all. And these are essentially my thoughts. The talk is not going to be structured, and it's not a formal talk really. But having put in 35 plus years in the organization and seen every state and every border of the country, I have my own ideas and views, which I would like to put across to you all. So in the next 30 odd minutes, I'll ramble through whatever little I've scribbled on national interest and international relations. The preview, I would simply say that my aim is to share my thoughts on national interest and international relations with reference to our immediate neighborhood and the countries like Pakistan and China. The scope of my talk is going to be confined to examples of China, Russia, and the Sino-US relations, and a brief reference to Israel, Germany, and Japan, which I find to be very relevant for us. Now, we've all been suddenly, woken up by the Chinese ingress in eastern Ladakh, and we've heard about the encounter in Galwan and the sacrifice of 20 of our brave soldiers. And this news of 20 soldiers who were killed in action and the developments along the India-China line of actual control have suddenly made us all sit up and give the situation some serious thought and consideration. And everyone is now debating on India's options in the face of an increasingly expansionist and aggressive China. I would also like to say that year after year, we face China and her proxy Pakistan along our borders. That's the northern, northeastern, and the western borders. But we are unable to bring them to the table on our terms. And in turn, we look towards the international community, including the US and the UN, for help in a demonstration of our inability to resolve issues of conflicting interest unilaterally. And therein lies our weakness. A study of wars against various countries reflects that majority of these wars have their roots in territorial disputes. And India has somehow lived through this 70 odd years with a territorial dispute on both flanks, the Western as well as the Northern. How long things continue to remain the same, I wonder. As far as history of the two nations is concerned, we can draw a few parallels between China and India. India attained its independence in 1947. In 1949, Mao Zedong announced that the Chinese people must either lean to the side of imperialism or to the side of socialism. further saying that to sit on the fence is impossible and a third road doesn't exist. So China took the road to socialism. At that point of time, they had very good relations with the USSR or the Soviet Union. But thereafter, through the 70s, the Soviet Union displayed an increased military buildup and deployed its most sophisticated nuclear and conventional weaponry along the Sino-Soviet border. By the end of the decade, China faced 45 Soviet divisions, that is in 1973, 150 Soviet SS-20 IRBMs, that is intermediate range ballistic missiles, as well as a Soviet backfire bomber. And Moscow, it could be seen, was intent on coercing China to accommodate itself to the Soviet interests. But then the Chinese, they were unwilling to do so, and they had their own agenda. Having built up a strong military force, they stood up to the Soviets and challenged their forces, relying on a strong military. At the same time, preserving national interest, the Chinese broke relations with the Soviets and aligned with the US, using all this time gainfully to develop their economy as well as their military mind internally, to ultimately outgrow themselves and indulge in global engagement to improve the economy and build military power, and thereafter, as we can see today, challenge even the US. Now, when it comes down to India, we could ask ourselves, has India evolved from a protest voice in the world stage to an active shaper of international order? When we look at post-independence India, there was a national fervor having attained independence through a struggle. But there was also a lack of strategic vision. And the outlook was shaped by Sri Jawaharlal Nehru, who viewed the West with skepticism. And he had a very rosy view of socialist ideals. And this led to a foreign policy based on three key pillars: non-alignment in the international arena, preservation of autonomy in domestic affairs, and a solidarity amongst developing nations, particularly those that had recently gained independence from colonial powers, or who would later be referred to as third world countries. And this policy continued through the Cold War, when India leaned towards the Soviet Union while deftly maintaining strategic autonomy and charting its own course in a bipolar international order. All this while, Nehru was on record to even suggest that India did not require an army. And there was that cliche of Hindu Chini Bhai Bhai, which we saw shattered in the 62 war. Successive events through the mid-80s up to the present time saw the USSR collapse. Simultaneously, the Indian economy grew. And today, we've championed the cause of global warming. We've taken the lead in the war against terror, aligned with the US, have our place in the UN Security Council, and lead the World Health Organization. While Pakistan has lost trust, but China, on the other hand, has emerged as a strategic competitor against the US and its allies. So today, India is a nation state that could perhaps play a pivotal role in balancing against China. But then again, are we ready to stand alone in our confrontation and efforts to bring China to the table? Can India confront China like the Chinese did against the Soviet Union? Or will we continue to cry to Uncle Sam for help against China, seen as the big bully? With the change of government and change of guard in the US, which way will the US go? Are they going to reach out to China, or will they follow Trump's policies of confrontation? nobody can really hazard a guess. Talking about national interests, there was a time and stage where the issue of national interest was debated much in the USA. And in one such great debate, the national interest of the United States, Hans J. Morgenthau suggested that it is often believed that there is an irreducible core of national interest for any state at any given time, which is called the vital interest of a nation. Now, the question that comes to my mind is, have we ever pondered and bothered to think about the vital interest of India? What is a vital interest? It is that on which, if necessary, a country is prepared to go to war. It's so important for the state that it is normally willing to go to war immediately or ultimately in order to safeguard that interest. And vital interest, as per him, vital interest of a country is supposed to be so basic that it is often regarded as permanent and primary. All other aspects of national interest remain subordinate to it, and national interest invariably has an emotional appeal to the people, including, for all states, as a minimum, the protection and preservation of their independence and territorial integrity. Cooperation, competition, diplomacy, conflict, war, and approachment all take place keeping in mind the interest of the nation at a given situation. And we can see this being played out between India and China, even as I speak. Given the existing environment between India, China, and Pakistan, the question to be asked of ourselves and our government is simply one and one alone. Does the environment threaten our nation so much so as to necessitate going to or being prepared to go to war? If so, have we prepared our military power adequately? Now, what is national strength? What is the strength of a nation? I found the best answer given by the Israeli Prime Minister, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, in his address at Delhi. In his words, a third of the Jews were destroyed 75 years ago. Those who survived are the ones who have today created a force to reckon with. The state of Israel is so strong. Stressing on national strength, he said, the strong survive, the weak don't survive. You make peace and alliances with the strong, and the weak accept the terms given to them as laid down by the strong. The first requirement, therefore, is to achieve the minimum strength to ensure survival. Distinguishing between soft and hard power, he went on to prefer hard power between the two. And then he explained what it means to have power. In the order of preference and precedence, the first thing on his cards was military power, military hardware, intelligence, and other issues important for survival. Defense and security, he said, always come first. It costs a great deal of money, which comes from the second source of power, that is economic power, technology, and industry. And therefore, it's the responsibility of a nation to develop its economy, its technology, and industry, who are responsible for ensuring that the nation has a strong military power. The third is a political power, which is possible only if military and economic power are met. And fourth is values, beliefs in deep roots laid down amongst our traditions and ancient cultures, imbibed in the hearts and minds of citizens. And the last is a free society in a democratic system that makes life worth living. The last two, in my opinion, form the foundations upon which the other aspects are built. It's pertinent to learn from certain other great nations like Japan, Germany, Britain, and most importantly, Israel. while I have touched upon Israel, let me give a line each for Japan and Germany, as well as Britain. The Second World War and the bombing at Hiroshima left Japan broken and devastated. But the Japanese are such a proud people that they were known to commit harakiri if their self-respect and pride was threatened. And therefore, they determined to rebuild the country. And today, Japan is amongst the world leaders in economies. Germany, once again, devastated after the war, partitioned by the Russian invasion, with the Berlin Wall between them. They had East and West Germany. Today, Germany is the leader amongst the European nations. They have broken the Berlin Wall and reunited, and West Germany has taken on all the debt burdens of East Germany. That's a proud nation. They have apologized to the world for Nazi atrocities upon the Jews, sealed Hitler's tomb, and decided to forget the past. Britain, a small island, which set up the Commonwealth, and the Commonwealth is still active. Therefore, they still head the Commonwealth as a leader. And this small little country is a world leader. It has a say in the United Nations and other international fora. Israel, their defense forces alone, have set up a defense industry which is the 6th largest in the world. So these are countries to take lessons from. Now, in conclusion, it would be correct for me to presume that in order to achieve the above, governments are responsible for correct policies and measures in national interest, which includes the safety, security, as well as territorial integrity, amongst others, and the well-being of its citizens. For the pillars of a nation's strength are its citizens, their abilities, aptitudes, skills, customs, culture, and especially their character and pride, which translates into national character and national pride. So I have very often pondered whether we as a nation and we as citizens have really imbibed all of this and where we are going to travel, which road in the years to come. The next question that begs an answer is, have our governments, past and present, ensured a strong military power for India? Did we plug the gaps? And if so, why is it that neither Pakistan nor China have been contained? Why do our borders remain volatile? And finally, why are our armed forces being neglected? Is it in national interest? These are some questions I have willfully and deliberately left unanswered for your imagination to consider as informed citizens. Indeed, we have miles to go, and it is citizens who need to shape the future of the country. Thank you. I'm open to questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. The floor is open for discussion.
President, meanwhile, the fishing video is ready. Can I play it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Please.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir. Just right. You see, yes, clear, yes, sir. Around 15 kg.
I've got you. Okay, now I'm about to release the video. Yeah. About 14 kilos, I think. Okay. It's a good size. Somebody on the water. Yeah.
We generally catch and release.
Correct. Wonderful, sir. Wonderful. 14 kg fish, mashir.
Yeah, That was a good catch.
Thank you, Rams, for sharing.
Thank you.
Now the floor is open for question and answer. Even any fishing question also you can ask, because since we show the picture.
One question, sir. The current extremism that keeps happening with the Chinese border, is it basically to check the what you call India's aggression on the border, or are they expanding that territory? Because in today's paper they say that Arunachal belongs to China. Your take on that?
You know, I wonder if you all can see this book. I'll try and.
Okay.
Well, anyway, I'll just read out the title. There's a wonderful book, very easy reading, Kashmir's Untold Story, Declassified. The authors are Iqbal Chand Malhotra and Maroof Raza. You can note it down, and in your own time, it's just about 200 odd pages, but it makes very interesting reading. Now, actually, our border issues, both with Pakistan and China, have their roots in the British rule and the legacy that they have left behind. And the Chinese have all along not accepted nor delineated the line of actual control. In all their parleys, they refer to the line of actual control, but on ground, it has not been demarcated. So when they built a village in Arunachal, we say it is on our side, and they say, well, entire Arunachal is ours. They have always been laying claim to it. See, that is where the issue comes up. They have Aksai Chin, they have come into Galwan in eastern Ladakh, they have come into Doklam, which is the tri-junction between Bhutan, India, and China. Bhutan is too weak to raise their voice, and India probably can only raise their voice. We don't have that kind of military might, apparently. And so we are stuck with this. And there is no denying that the Chinese have an expansionist agenda. And what is called by many experts, they believe in salami slicing. Every year, 2 kilometers inside, or next year, 2 kilometers inside somewhere else. Only this morning, we had a very interesting historic perspective given by a historic or a research worker in the Sino-India, territorial issues, Mr. Claude R.P. Those of you who are interested in knowing about this, the name is CLAUDE-ARPI. You can go into the website of the USI of India and check for his article. So this is all a very deliberate and a very planned, step that the Chinese have taken. They are also setting up some industry to make microchips further north of Galwan. And this industry requires a lot of water. And that's one of the reasons why they have come down towards the Galwan River and towards Pengangso, because they want to claim and use that water. And then the number of dams which they are constructing in erstwhile Tibet, and now, of course, it's not even referred to as the Tibet Autonomous Region. It's become part of China. So this is all a well-planned scheme and not triggered by India in any manner. Unfortunately, the Indian governments have been sitting, or standing on their back foot, waiting for something to happen and then react. So the Chinese invariably enjoy the first movers, advantage. And to fight in hills, as we know, even in Kargil, we lost over 1,200 men merely to recapture our own territory. So I think there has been bad planning and lack of vision. If I can take the liberty of go a little further, nobody till today has laid down any document which is a national vision, either for economic growth or for military power. Where does India want to be, let's say 20 years from now? And what is the roadmap to get there? What is the role being played by industry, by agriculture, by scientists, and what kind of security is required, and therefore how should the military forces be trained and equipped? There is no document. So how do you play strategy in the absence of a laid down vision document? It's like playing football in a goalless field. Every player kicks the football in whichever direction he's facing. And one of the major weaknesses that we have is 5-year tenure of a government with no fixed written vision document. Every government that comes play their own cards, and every 5 years there is a change of direction. I think I'll say that much and no more. I hope I've answered your question.
Any more questions? Anybody want to share their views? Please unmute yourself and ask, please. Sanjay, anything you want to ask? Okay. Okay. Hello, yes? Okay. If no questions, fine. Let us come to the end of the meeting. Anyway, if you want to ask anything about the fishing video, you can ask the Brigadier about. So tell about the experience of the fishing, sir. 1 or 2 minutes. Where you caught the fish?
Yeah, before that, let me briefly share my experience as the commander of a brigade in super high altitude against the Chinese, and also as a company commander facing the Chinese in the Guangdong sector, Somdorongchu episode of 1986-87. When the Chinese come forward, they come forward in a very planned manner. There is nothing left to chance. They do these things deliberately. And in Somdorong, when they came across into our area, fortunately for us, we had some strong generals, and Rajiv Gandhi was then the Prime Minister. He did give a reasonable degree of freedom to the armed forces. And we moved up and prepared our defenses and brought up a line where the Chinese felt that lack of confidence if they attacked us. And so the line remained there, and we continued with parleys for maybe over a year till the time they withdrew from certain areas, and peace has been maintained. Now, my command of the brigade was in North Sikkim, that is adjacent to the Tibetan plateau. The issue that I found there, and the issue that we found also in Arunachal and elsewhere in Ladakh and all, whereas on the Chinese side, they have developed super infrastructure, roads. They got a railway line going all the way to Lhasa. Now they're extending it further into Tibet. They've got airfields. So they are there, in a position to mobilize at short notice and to build up their forces. Whereas we have long chains of communication. There was a road, an alternative road supposed to come into my brigade sector. This road project had been stuck at the central government between the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Forests and Environment, where the Ministry of Forests and Environment did not give it clearance. saying that it's going to degrade the environmental balance. So I asked this question of them, what is more important, national security or your environmental balance? So, we've got people meddling in different affairs and causing problems. All right. Now, to cut loose from that serious topic, let's talk about fishing. The mahseer fish is generally found in cold waters and also seen to thrive in the Kaveri in the area of Kurg. It's actually a prize fish where anglers who go out for sport, love to catch some because they're very good fighters. They're considered tigers of the fresh water, and they are ambivorous in nature. They eat non-vegetarian stuff, small fish, and also plants and other things. The fish has been listed as an endangered species. So since we go out mainly for sport, we don't go to kill and to consume the fish. We catch it and then we release it. And many anglers use a very heavy line, say a 40-pound line or 30-pound line. That kind of line is good enough to just pull the fish in without giving it a chance to escape. So we use something like a 10-pound, 12-pound line, which the fish can even break. So you have to sort of play and sort of fight it for a longer time, tire it out, and then you catch it and release it. And it's good fun sometimes to go out with friends and break the monotony and also relieve yourself from day-to-day sort of worries and woes. So anyone who wants to come to North India to try their hand, they're most welcome to get in touch. We'll help you out.
Sure, sir. A group of people will come there and meet you. I'm very happy that you are a fighter in water and in land, sir. Military people.
Oh, yes. Well,
Yes.
Mr. Ramchandran, I've seen life.
Yes,
I have
sir.
seen in the post Ayodhya riots, I've seen a father and son stoned to death, their shop set on fire, and both these boys, people, while they were alive, were thrown into that fire and they burned to death. When we removed their bodies, I told the DC to have the bodies taken to the morgue. And the DC was too busy, he didn't do so. When we came back to the same place after patrolling other areas, I found dogs eating these bodies. So I've seen the worst. I've seen the worst. In the earthquake in Gujarat, there's a man who came to us asking that his box of money and jewelry should be retrieved for him because he said, my wife and child have died, but I have to live, so I need this. And when we went in and took our dogs and dig things out, we found the lady was alive. She was feeding her 6-month-old child by puncturing her fingers and feeding the child with blood. And she was tapping a water pipe to make noise, and that noise was picked up by the dog. And this was, I think, 109 hours after that building had collapsed. So we pulled her out and we took her to a hospital along with her husband. And you should have seen the look of gratitude on all their faces. So I've seen it. I've seen the Pakistan border, the Chinese border. I've seen the internal problems, all of them. It's been a life as tasty or peculiar as pickles, sometimes salty, sometimes sour, and sometimes sweet. No complaints. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for spending your evening time along with us and spend us. Thank you.
Yeah.
And before going for vote of thanks, I request all board members to stay back for board meeting after the meeting. And it's a time for vote of thanks. I invite Lieutenant PL Manikam to propose vote of thanks.
Good evening, Rtedians. First of all, let me thank the President for giving the opportunity to say vote of thanks. The speaker of the evening, Pradeep Sharma, Brigadier from Indian Army, has delivered a very good speech. It is informative and interesting. Participants who took part in the e-meeting. Special thanks to Sri Rams for displaying the fishing video. Really wonderful video. Thank you so much.